Hi, and welcome to Kontena headquarters from Helsinki, the live session. Today I'm going to introduce how to get out most of Kontena Stacks and Templates. So if you haven't met me before, I'm Lauri Nevala and I'm one of the co-founders of Kontena. And I'm passionate Ruby developer and DevOps guy. And I'm wannabe long distance runner and father of two awesome kids. And you can follow me on Twitter if you want. So it's Nevalau handle. So like I said, I'm going to speak about Kontena Stacks. So Kontena Stacks are pre-packaged and reusable collection of container services and with associated configurations in the form of YAML files. And basically those stacks can be anything. They can be your own custom applications or some common stacks like databases or some other services. They can include only one instance or service, or they can be a combine of multiple services. So it's up to you what you want to make and include in your stacks. And how to install those Kontena stacks? Those can be installed from Kontena Stack registry, or those can be installed from a local file system if you have a project source code and that includes Kontena YAML file, then you can install it right away from the folder where the source code is. Or you can install from URL if the YAML file is publicly available on some URL. You just install it from there. So Kontena stacks, those are configured in Kontena stack files, and typically the stack file is kontena.yaml file. And here's one example of Redis stack. And it looks like YAML file. If you are familiar with Docker Compose YAML file, it's very similar. So first there's a stack section, and it describes the stack. It defines the owner of stack. In this example, it's Kontena/Redis. The Kontena is the owner. Typically, it's Kontena Cloud username, or in the future, it can be also organization name. And the latter part is the stack name. And then a stack contains some meaningful description. Yeah, it's basically tells what is the stack all about. And then there's version information. The version follows semantic versioning. So if you upgrade the stack from stack registry, it will get the latest version automatically if the user has not provided any version information. Then you can expose one service out of stack, Kontena stack. Basically, that means that the service will get the DNS stack DNS alias. So you can reference with the stack name to that one service within the stack. So basically, if you have, for example, a stack named auth, and it has 3 instances of API service and then the database service, you can expose the API service and reference with auth grid name.container local DNS to that stack or service. Then you can define some variables in Kontena Stack file. So the role of variables is that you can reuse those stack files and give some freedom to define certain things on an installation phase. And first, the variable should have some name, and you can reference with that name to that variable later on in the stack file. And then the variable has some type. I think most typically it will be string, but it can be also Boolean or enumerator or integer or URI or array. And then a variable can have some default value. And basically you can tell in a stack file where the value of variable will be fetched. It can come from environment variable. This is very handy, for example, if you are dealing with stack files with your CI/CD pipeline. So you can define those values in a pipeline as environment variable. Or it can be read from file, or it can be prompted from user. Or container can generate some random string or number, or it can be fetched from container vault if it's some sensitive data. And it can be also some service instances. That means that you can, if you have scaled your stack service up to certain amount of instances, you can fetch that value and you don't lose the stack service instances when you, for example, upgrade your stack. But exact the same amount of services will be there after the upgrade as previous. It can be also be a service link. So if you want to link your stack service to some other link to some other service, you can use service link type and a prompt from user that what service you want to link with your stack service. We will see one example later on. And you can also fetch certificates from Vault. This is very handy, for example, if you are creating load balancer stack. So you can prompt some certificate that you want to use with the load balancer. And then you can define also where to store the value of variable. By default, the value will be stored to variable itself, but you can store it to local environment variable, or you can store it in container vault as well. And then you can also define some conditionals in a stack file. Currently there's skip if and only if conditionals. And skip if means that if a certain condition is true, then the variable will be skipped on that phase. And otherwise, only if is that this variable is included only if certain condition is true. And there's lots of other cool things related to variables, and you can read from those from our documentation. And after the variables, you can just define the services. And if you are familiar with Docker Compose files, version 2 especially, then you are ready to go. Kontena will follow the notation, and of course there are some exceptions. Not every option is supported, and Kontena also adds some extra options that are supported only by Kontena. And you can read the whole reference from our documentation related to service options and how you can configure those. And what is the cool part with Kontena stack files is that you can use liquid template language to get more advanced templating with Kontena stack files. But you have to note that the file, Kontena stack file, must be valid YAML file before and after template rendering. So that's why we are using YAML comment blocks to define those liquid blocks. So the YAML won't. The YAML will be valid YAML format. Okay, now I will show you real Kontena stack file that you can install from a Kontena stack registry. It's about Kong API gateway. So this is a stack file, and first it contains the stack information. It's under the Kontena namespace, and the stack name is Kong. Okay, the current version of this stack is 0.1.3, and the description mentions that this is a Kong API gateway with Postgres SQL. And we are exposing API service from this stack, so other services can reference and reach this stack with Kong.grid.local container.local address. So this is the admin gateway that can be used with this DNS. And then we are introducing some variables. First, we are prompting from user that does he want to use bundled Postgres. If he already has some external Postgres instance running, for example in Amazon RDS or something, then he can skip and start using that Postgres. And we are also defining every variable readable from environment variables. So if environment variables are in place, we are not prompting anything. And then if the user has selected that he wants to use bundled Postgres, then we can skip the Postgres host, Postgres user, but if not, then we are prompting from user the Postgres host and Postgres user information. On every case, we are defining Postgres password variable. So first, if we already know that it's stored in a Kontena vault, we will use value from there. Otherwise, we are prompting the password from a user, or if user don't want to define any password, we can generate random string. And on this time, we are storing the value to Kontena vault, and we can use that later on a installing phase, and Kontena will fetch the value from there. And then also, if using external Postgres database, we are prompting the Postgres database that will be used with Kong. Okay, then we have a load balancer variable. So the purpose of this variable is to ask from user that are there any Kontena load balancer that can be used to route traffic to Kong gateway. So we are using service link type and define that we want to search services that are based on Kontena LB Docker image. And this is optional. It's required as false. So user has option to not to select any service. And if user has selected some load balancer, we are prompting from user the domains that we point to load balancer, or load balancer will point with those domains to Kong API gateway. And then user can define the Kong version that he wants to use. By default, it's 0.10.2, but user can override that on installation phase. And optionally, user can also select, does he want to install also third-party Kong dashboard web UI. And we can use these variables in service section. So we are using the version variable to define the Kong version, what version of or Docker tag, image tag we are using for Kong. And then we have some liquid templating. So if user has selected to use bundled Postgres, we are defining, we already know, or we set those to Kong API gateway service. Otherwise, we are using values that the user has provided. And if user has selected load balancer, then we are setting the load balancing rules. So Kong API gateway, public API gateway will listen port 8000, and we will set the domains to as Kontena load balancer virtual host. And finally, we will link the load balancer service that user selected. And because we stored Postgres password to Kontena Vault, we can reference from in secret section and reference that Kontena Vault entry here. And we decide that we are using Kong PG password environment variable for that password. Okay, and if user selected that he wants to include Postgres, we will define Postgres service and use those default values and read the password again from Kontena Vault. And finally, we will also introduce the dashboard if user selected that he wants to install that also. So with these variables and a service configuration, I think we have quite generic Kontena stack file that almost every user can install and customize the installation with these variables. And we can try to install this stack. So now I'm installing it from a local file system because I'm on the same directory. So the YAML file exists in this directory. So I can just enter Kontena stack install command. By default, it's using Kontena YAML file. Okay, now because we haven't provided any environment variables, it will prompt from me. So yes, we want to use bundle Postgres, and now it found one Kontena LB service. Okay, let's use that. And let's define that we want to use api.acme.io and point that to load balancer. And then we want to use 0.10.2 and deploy also the dashboard service. Okay, now it's deploying the stack. We can also see on a Kontena Cloud the progress of stack installation. So now the Postgres and dashboard is up and running, and finally it will install also the API service. Most likely the Kontena has already deleted this Docker image because it has been unused, and now it has pulled it from a Docker Hub again. Okay. And because we deployed the dashboard service also, we can try it. It's reachable only via Kontena VPN that I have configured already. And now I can see that the dashboard is working and it's connected to Kong admin gateway, Kong admin API. And we can start using this. We can create some API. Let's define API. And we defined it was api.acme.io. That is pointing to Kong, so let's use that. And I have already deployed one service called API to my grid, so we can we're gonna use that and point to that service. So now every request that are coming with the api.acme.io will go first to Kontena load balancer, and then Kontena load balancer will route that to Kon gateway, and Kon gateway will route that to our API service. Okay, it was created, and let's test it out. Okay, now the engine X is responding, and it was great success. So now I have demonstrated how you can make some generic and commonly usable stack files. You can find lots of ready-made stacks from Kontena Stack registry, and if you have in your mind some cool stack and you have already maybe implemented it, please share it in a Kontena Stack registry so everyone can start using it. So, if you haven't already signed up to Kontena Cloud, please do it and install Kontena CLI and install Kontena Master and spin up a couple of Kontena nodes and start enjoying Kontena platform. And if you have any troubles, please join to our Slack channel. It's slack.kontena.io. There's lots of very helpful people ready to answer your questions and help in any kind of way they can. Okay, thank you. This is all I wanted to share this time, and please tune in next time also. We will have lots of interesting topics coming as well.